Before we get started, we had a last minute little change, right? Doug, who's supposed to be here, you can see him on the screen. He had a family emergency, he could not come in. And Jason Kamprowski, on his birthday, decided to jump in 5 minutes ago. He doesn't know any of the questions, so it's gonna be really fun for him. And he's the new NGA OpenStreetMap product manager. So I will thank you to jumping in the last minute, you know. And happy birthday, by the way. So this is your gift. Get on the panel.
Thank you very much.
So everybody got their mics going? All right. So driving federal collaboration with OpenStreetMap. We got a great panel here for today. So what we're going to do is start off with, we're going to have a nice little conversation. We're going to start off with like 5 questions. We're going to start off with a couple questions and we'll go from there. So first to start introduction, my name is Kelley. I'm the president of Upslope Advisors. I love OSM. I support the OSM, the NJ, OpenStreetMap team, bringing it out there. And the reason why I love mapping so much and love OpenStreetMap is because I see how these updates affect what people do, right? There's changes coming in OpenStreetMap that you get faster than almost any other source, right? Stuff that's going on in the world. And that's why I love OpenStreetMap, and that's why I'm glad to be moderating this panel.
Hello, everybody. I'm Derald Dudley. I lead the transportation team of the National Spatial Data Infrastructure. I'm involved with the Federal Geographic Data Committee. I co-chair the Geospatial Data Act Working Group, and I chair the Geospatial Transportation Subcommittee. So as theme lead in those roles, it's my job to optimize the public value of the transportation geospatial data. And I do that primarily by increasing access, facilitating data integration, trying to find tools that help people better understand the data, make better decisions with it. And we work with OSM, or have started working with OpenStreetMap to kind of figure out how we can partner to build tools and techniques to hopefully leverage their community because they have such a great community, such a strong user base that really believes into, I'm sorry. Oh, my bad, I'm sorry. Should I start over? So partnering with OSM really allows us hopefully access to their community and a way to increase the data that we can enable. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Adriana Lard. I'm with the Response Geospatial Office. I'm the crowdsourcing coordinator there. With OpenStreetMaps and open mapping as a whole, we use it more so for validation. We have a lot of decision support tools that go into response and when we activate and things like that. So we use some crowdsourcing partners as well as OpenStreetMaps to validate some of the decision support tools that we have.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Kamprowski. I'm with the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency. I'm actually one of the product managers for OpenStreetMaps. I want to start off by saying what an incredible birthday gift this is. Coming, thinking I was going to be in the audience and asked to participate. So this is pretty awesome. So again, Jason Kamprowski, NGA, National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency. So I'm a product manager, and it kind of has like two kind of definitions, depending from a government perspective and from a contracting perspective. So specifically for me in my role as a government product manager, I try to keep it real simple in the sense of I'm the broker between mission needs and requirements and how we can make the application better to support our needs. One of the things I absolutely love about OpenStreetMaps is we're able to have all this community-driven and created data for us at our agency to support what we need for our mission. A couple of things that are incredibly powerful is if you're like a data scientist or a developer, there's a lot of neat capabilities within the application that you can use at the UI level when you see it, but the integration capabilities I think are incredibly powerful with other applications that we have, whether it's Map of the World or OpenSphere and such. So just the flexibility to have it integrate with multiple applications, the access to the data, wherever we are at work is pretty neat, pretty impactful, has a lot of value, makes a huge impact to our community.
Fantastic. I feel like I'm at a rock concert. Everybody just needs to move forward a little bit or so far back. My name is Maggie Cawley. I serve as the Executive Director for OpenStreetMap US. And I'm going to take the assumption out of the room here. Can you raise your hand if you've heard of OpenStreetMap? Yes, I love that. That's everyone, I think.
I would hope so.
If you didn't raise your hand, OpenStreetMap is the world's largest crowdsourced database of geospatial information. And if you haven't edited, I encourage you to create an account and get over there and at least maybe go map your high school. But you may know about OpenStreetMap, but I'm not sure a lot of people know that OpenStreetMap US exists. We are a nonprofit, US-based nonprofit, whose mission is to support and grow the OpenStreetMap community in the US through education, tooling, and convening stakeholders, which is really one of the reasons we're up here today. And when I say community, I actually mean, not only those folks out there, the millions of editors contributing data to OpenStreetMap every day, but also those users. At this point in time, there's over 27,000 companies consuming OpenStreetMap data, and that's not including governments across the world. So most of those people don't probably know that they're part of a global community, but part of our role at OpenStreetMap US is to invite them into the room and make sure that they know that this community exists.
Okay, thank you. We're going to the first question. This is for everybody. How is the use of open mapping, OpenStreetMap, how is it changing at your organization, and what do you contribute to this trend? And the reason why I say that is, since I got into NGA about 2016, and just seeing the use of it over those years and seeing more and more people use it, right? I think it's been a great trend, and more people using it for, once it was just a base map, and now for other applications. So I can see how it is at NGA a little bit. But for your organizations, how do you see, how's it changing and what do you contribute to it?
We're just kind of starting on our journey at DOT. We've been working with Maggie and her team for a couple of years now. We really see a tremendous increase in demand for geospatial data, especially with the advent of automated vehicles. We anticipate the demand to be much larger than the resources we have to meet that demand. So expanding opportunities and methods of data collection and sharing is really kind of why we're involved with OpenStreetMap. We're currently developing an open data strategy, open geospatial data strategy at the department. An example that we could use would be our initiative to collect bicycling, pedestrian, and accessibility data. So a lot of that is very, very local, and all the expertise is local. How do we collect that and aggregate it and share it nationally? It creates a lot of challenges. So working with Maggie and OpenStreetMap and open data collection and open data sharing, I think advances us towards that space where we can increase access and integrate the data and start helping people make informed decisions about their travel needs.
Yeah, I think to agree with you on that, I think we're trending with a lot of other federal agencies. We need better ways to leverage it, and I think, with red tape, as you know, with federal agencies, it's kind of fairly new that we've started using some of this open mapping, open street maps, and things like that. I think right now, what I've seen as far as trending is that, like I spoke about before, that validation piece. So one thing I could speak to is we have a tool called POST, and it's a prioritization of operations support tool. And so during a disaster, we'll get a lot of overlays, a lot of different layers, and we'll look at it and we'll try to see where we should send resources and send people, or see where our biggest impacts will be. It's somewhat of impact indexed. And so with that, we'll take a lot of open source or open data, open mapping, and kind of validate those to make sure that we were correct and that it was right, or to make sure that it was in line with what we sent or how much we sent. And that's what I've been seeing lately, as well as we use it in a crowdsourcing. So a lot of times we're not able, with FEMA in response, we're not able to get boots on the ground right away. But if we use that crowdsourcing, use that open source data to kind of look and see where we should respond, or how bad is it? So that's what we use it for a lot. And I see the trend going up as far as the need and the want for open mapping, open data.
Man, how do I follow that? Everything, what I'm hearing right now is exactly what we're impacting our agency. It just gives us the opportunity to take or acquire information that wasn't readily available to us. And it just provides us that data in our organization to support our mission. There was a request that came in last week that kind of demonstrated the power of it. Like, within our organization, we have responsibilities to understand boundaries, right? Derald was talking about transportation, but specifically for us within boundaries, we're looking at boundaries, whether it's maps or information. But what's pretty neat is, if there's areas that nobody really even knows about, but you have users out there that's kind of saying, hey, this is my village, this is my boundary, we're able to capture that information, whether it's for natural disaster purposes, supporting FEMA, human geography. It's incredible. So it's just having access and available to, like, literally the world contributing to, geospatial data. Another thing that's really impactful to our organization is the flexibility and how it's open and you're able to integrate it with other applications. I mentioned earlier a little bit with Map of the World, OpenSphere. So if we do have a community out there that's not aware of OpenStreetMaps, we can have that embedded within other applications. And you'll see right there, OpenStreetMaps. And as Aaron is doing his user engagement efforts in our agency, that's just some of the things that we're educating folks through Discovery Series. Just, share the wealth, understand the value, demonstrate the impact, and just let it be contagious.
Are you sure you weren't prepared for this panel? Gosh, I guess I bring a different perspective here from the community side, but OpenStreetMap has really reached a level of maturation as a project over the last, almost 20 years. And I think, the private sector has seen its value and, economized on its value for a really long time. There's a lot of applications using OpenStreetMap, and it's free, right? And I think that value is increasingly being realized by our state, local, and federal government agencies because the data is just getting to that level of quality. And, it could take a year to update all of the buildings in, a county government's database, but it could take minutes in OpenStreetMap. So even that timeliness of data and the readiness is something that people are coming to rely upon. I'd say that the other thing is, the value is not only in the map data, but the tooling, the open source software that is being built around OpenStreetMap, I think is also getting more attention in recent years than it has in the past. And the encouraging thing that I see is that there's more collaboration around those tools as more and more people are using them. So I hope it's a trend that continues. Okay,
let's move on to the next question, and now we're going to get into the details. How do you, for your agency, I'll pick on my NGA rep and FEMA rep. How do you guys manage quality, accuracy, and reliability when using open data, open source, open mapping data? And the reason why I say that is because I know, at least at NGA, that's a question that comes up to us all the time. Like, this is a great data source, but how do you know it's accurate? How do you know that kind of stuff? So how do you deal with those kind of issues?
Great point. I think that is a challenge, right? Yeah. As you mentioned, especially in FEMA, where we have to be accurate. I'm not going to say right, but we have to be accurate in responding, right? So that's been kind of like the biggest challenge that I've seen when we're trying to say, hey, we can leverage this data set, but they're like, oh, I don't see a timestamp, or how do we know that's for this disaster, especially places that get hit more than one time when you get that open source data. So I think it's one way that we manage it is just partnering with the right people, right? Making those right connections, the people that are already validating the data, that are ingesting the data, going through it, making sure that it's correct. I also think that spaces like this, where I can meet people and talk with people and ask questions about the data that they have and kind of get those answers. And so I'm able to give my senior leaders and say, hey, no, this is actually verified by this agency, this many people look at it. And I think in FEMA, we have a few data sets that we use, but a lot of the time it goes out to the regions. So depending on that regional wherever that disaster happens in that region, they kind of are able to validate their own data, and we'll get it at HQ from a headquarters level and use it there. So I think it's just a thing of working with everybody and making sure we understand the good and bad about every data set and leveraging that.
All right, sir.
So for us at NGA in our profession, right, we're trained since day one that not a single source is going to be the end all, right? So it's a matter of experience, understanding what you're looking at. Most of the times if we're looking at an area, we're analyzing geospatial data, it's not our first time, so we have really good muscle memory of the areas that we're looking at. And, you know, like my colleague here mentioned for FEMA, it's all about other sources, right? Looking at other collateral sources. So our users in our agency understand that this is data that's derived from open source. It's, you know, people from around the world. And as you're looking at areas and all the data, you kind of see, you know, patterns and trends, and you kind of see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what not to use. But regardless, even if it's not, you know, what we want it to be at our level, the data is still extremely valuable because it's information we wouldn't have access to prior.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question. Now I'll give you two a break and answer my other two colleagues on the panel. So, what does, for you, Derald, what does open mapping enable that you have not been able to achieve by other techniques?
That's a good question, and that's a good thing I thought about it before I got up here. We've kind of identified three roles at DOT for geospatial data community. One is a data producer, one is a data consumer, and the other is an enabler. So as theme lead, I am an enabler. I'm trying to connect producers with consumers and trying to, again, optimize the public value of that data. Working with Maggie and OpenStreetMap allows us to do that job better. We're better able to connect the consumers of the data with transportation information. It also allows us to hopefully it'll become a two-way street where we're not only consuming the data but also providing data back to OSM. So we're increasing accessibility to the data and helping people make informed decisions about transportation and the work and how they want to get around. So another part of this is access to local knowledge or local expertise. I don't know where the curb cuts are in Des Moines, Iowa, but the Iowans do, or the Des Moines. What are the words for Des Moines? Des Moines. They do. And those questions are essential across the nation. So as we get into the community and start building these partnerships and understanding that we're all in it together, we can start really kind of influencing and helping people make better decisions that make them safer and make transportation more efficient. So the big thing we're focused on is safety. So if we can make somebody's trip safer, that's fantastic. If we can save somebody the trouble of walking an extra block or going to a building where it's accessible and as opposed to where it's not, that's a victory too. So all these small victories accumulate, and we hope to make a difference in people's lives that way.
Okay, and that's actually a good thing you brought up, the local data, the people who are putting the data in there. That's something that people kind of forget about. Like the people who are updating these maps are the people in those areas, right? You could take every agency, but you're not that person in Iowa or wherever making those updates. So I think that's a great point. So Maggie, following up on that, how are you collaborating to support these goals? How are you doing that?
This is a good one. I didn't prepare for this at all. So, OpenStreetMap US is increasingly becoming the convener of all the stakeholders. I mean, if you think about OpenStreetMap and a map, there's so many different things that it touches. It touches our whole world. Everything is geospatial. So what we've started to do is created these convening spaces, especially with the government. We created a government committee 2 years ago. Within the first year of our conversation, it started in 2019 in Minneapolis at the State of the Map US. And, we had a panel, and the questions were, can authoritative data and crowdsourced data live together harmoniously? And this was a big question for an hour panel to tackle. What does interoperability look like? What does a collaboration look like between government and OpenStreetMap? So these were the foundation for our first government committee meeting. And I think we had 15 people at that first meeting in August of 2020, and I was really excited about that. And then I looked at an org chart of the federal government, and it's like, wow, we have a really long way to go to make sure that everybody's voice is in the room. But 2 years later, we have 60 people coming to these meetings on and off, and really starting to grow that. So, I think the value that we're bringing is creating kind of a more neutral space to bring all these stakeholders together, private industry, government stakeholders, and the mappers. So we are bringing, map editors into the room as well to talk about, how we work on metadata. The other thing is finding a shared language. You talk about government GIS very differently than you talk about OpenStreetMap data, but we all know at the end of the day it's kind of the same thing, but what's a tag? What's an equals what? So providing that translation has been a long conversation, and getting to that shared understanding to support future collaboration has been really, really great, and something that needs to continue.
And I just want to say that, when I joined, there was an OpenStreetMap US, right? Like, this is a thing, right? And I think this is one of the cool things that came out of these kind of meetings, just be able to have a panel like this. Because 5 years ago, we're not having this kind of meeting with these three agencies on the same panel talking about OpenStreetMap. And there's not meetings going on, monthly meetings, kind of talk about stuff. And, you're working on an issue, like stuff you have, maybe another agency could help out, and just having those things together. So I think it's good. You want to say?
I just wanted to point out, OpenStreetMap has already been helpful for the federal government. With the Geospatial Data Act, we're required to develop data standards, minimum content data standards, and the OSM community has done a lot of that work already. Those standards must be consensus-based. So having OSM and their community kind of define what's important to them about certain geospatial features is a huge help to us to understand what that content should include. So, it saves us the time and effort of convening in lots of meetings and talks and stuff like that. So, that's already a way we can partner and avoid the cost of all that stuff. So we're already being successful at
well, and, I'm not, should I say this in here about the speed of government? But, one of the things we're also finding is, we are a nonprofit organization, and we represent the community, but we're also a little more agile. We can try things and fail pretty quickly. Whereas, if you go through different routes of the agencies, they have different requirements. So, being able to partner, and, OpenStreetMap US takes that risk. We're going to try to build a tool. If it works, that's great. If not, we iterate and we try again. But we can do that over a year time and continue to work on things in a way that I don't think is as flexible in your all's agencies.
Yeah. Yes. Now let's look to the future. Where are we going to be 5 years from now, from today, with open data, OpenStreetMap, and what will we be talking about at that FedGeoDay 5 years from now? Because, where do you think this is heading? So I'm going to ask all the question to everybody on the panel.
I'm going first?
Yeah, you're always first.
I'm always first, okay. So 5 years from now, Maggie and I will have won the Nobel Prize, the Pulitzer, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So those are, lofty goals. No, I champion incrementalism. It's the way the federal government works. We make small adjustments, and we advance that way. It's painful sometimes. It seems glacial or geologic, but that's just the way it is. So we have to be committed to the changes that we want to make, and that may take years. So being up here, committing to open data and getting open data into the hands of travelers and the transportation community is where we're headed, and I'm committed to that. I know Maggie is. So 5 years, I see an even stronger partnership with OpenStreetMap, maybe some other dabbles in the open community. Hopefully we will have built a tool that we're working on, a public domain map, which allows the collection and authentication of public domain data, and that data is then consumed by DOT and then OpenStreetMap as well. So developing those tools for collection and authentication and increasing, again, optimizing the value of the public data through access, integration, analyzation, and better decision making is where we're headed. And I'm happy to be up here with everybody. I think we're all committed to the same thing, and we're just, want to make the world a better place, and we can do that.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment as well. I think if you think about FEMA as an agency, if you just look back 5 years first, right, we've made strides, so many strides in crowdsourcing and open mapping. So if I think about the next 5 years, I can just imagine where we're going to be. But it starts, like you said, with the partnerships, with the having the conversations, because I feel like there's so much more we can tap into, especially as a response agency for disasters that we don't leverage because, one, we don't know it's there, or two, we're not allowed to use it. So I think that is something that I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see that FEMA come with a lot of, using a lot of data sets and ingesting a lot of data that is open that we'll be able to use. I will say that we have created the USA structures, which is building footprints of structures throughout the U.S., and that data set is actually on Living Atlas right now. So I think in the next 5 years, we'll probably build that out a little bit more, add some more attributions, add some more details to it. But that is one of the open public domain data sets that we do have at FEMA. So I think in the next 5 years, that's going to be kind of like one of our bread and butter things.
Are you adding addresses to those?
Right now, we have UUID, and I think it should be, I don't want to speak for it, but I think it's definitely coming down the line.
We should partner because we have the address team that we can work with. Right.
See, and that's why we're here. That works out. That works out. But we do have some things we need to add to that, but yeah, I would love to collab. I'm probably not the right person for that, but I definitely think we can do that. So in the next 5 years, I do think FEMA will be one of the agencies, well, I hope will be one of the lead agencies for open source and open mapping. Right.
Sitting here at the last minute, representative as the National Geospatial Agency, that's going to be awesome.
I know. I hope.
Right, that's going to be great. So Maggie asked earlier how many hands were up that was aware of or is a user of OpenStreetMaps. And I'll ask the question to the audience. How many legacy GIS users, like you were doing GIS in the last 10 years, if you raise your hand? All right, so we have some folks here. So where I'm going to get to is what I see in the future is focus on look how GIS community has evolved, right? So I first got into GIS when I enlisted in the Army in 2002, and we were learning ArcView, and what was it Avenue scripting? And then ArcMap came around, and ArcPro is here, but those are all like desktop applications, right? And they're very powerful, right? But they're very expensive to acquire as well. So also, depends on where you are at the agency level or what you want to do. And then we're moving into web applications, right? So now we have all these geospatial applications in a web environment. So we moved from desktop applications to proprietary databases to now we have an open source community building in a web environment. So I'm fascinated to see where the next 5 years are going to go when we start marrying mapping up along with imagery, right? Because we're just talking about mapping here, and we can use a base map where we take photos and we kind of see what we do, but kind of marry that up with commercial imagery sources. And then in addition to what we're doing with where the world is going with AI, ML, right? Like artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? Whether or not you're in a OpenStreetMaps application and you're constantly, creating a certain kind of features, maybe the system will learn what you do and automatically populate that or close those corners based on what they see on the pixels on imagery, right? So from the AI ML perspective, I'm pretty excited to see where that's going to go in the next 5 years.
crystal ball. Let's see. Well, I mean, in 5 years, hopefully I won't have to do anything about raising your hands, because everybody's heard of OpenStreetMap. I know where I'd like to see it. You know, I think right now there's a lot of consumption of the data. And, you know, I really hope we start to think about the tragedy of the commons and start thinking about, you know, if too many people are standing on this table, the legs are going to collapse. So I really like to see more people getting invested in the infrastructure that supports all of these things. I'd like to see, thanks, Eddie. I'd like to see us thinking about education, you know, and we have a program we work on with OpenStreetMap US, Teach OSM, trying to bring, you know, OpenStreetMap into classrooms to get, you know, those teenagers thinking geospatially at a younger age, you know, thinking about that next generation of folks who are going to be relying on this data and needing these tools, but also, you know, probably don't really think that way quite yet. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see, you know, more thinking about getting data out of OpenStreetMap in an accessible way. You know, there are ways now, but I mean, creating greater accessibility allows people to use it, you know, support their missions, you know, whether it's advocating for equity in different neighborhoods based on, you know, the number of playgrounds, or, you know, you throw out any kind of case study, like number of bike lane miles in a city. So I'd like to see more of that kind of thing. And I hope that we're talking more about analysis and not as much as completeness. I don't know when the goal was to finish the map, but as we all know, it's probably never done because we need to garden it and things change and the world is ever changing. But yeah, I hope we're still having this conversation and we've solved all the problems of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only thing I would say, just add on to that, I would love more collaboration, right? Because I think there's some really good information that we all have, right? We all bring to the table. So what, you know, transportation, FEMA, NGA, we all care about different things. If we could start contributing, understanding tagging, getting to the right set of data, and just making the data more complete so we can use it for the analysis, I agree with that. I'm going to go a little bit off script now. Maggie doesn't know what I'm about to do right now. So we're going to ask one more question. We talked about what you did and everything you did, but what do you like about it? Let's go like, what do you actually like about open mapping, OSM? What do you like about it? Because I know you're using it, you advocate for it, but what do you like about this whole thing?
I'm a geo geek.
All right.
Cartophile. So I love everything geospatial. I love maps. I love charts, nautical charts, aeronautical charts. What I like most about OSM is like I feel at home. I feel like you're my people. So, you know, I can sit around and chat about geography and space and how it's used and how it creates a better understanding of the world and how we use that knowledge to improve things for people. So the community is really what excites me about OSM. And I feel like we're all kind of in it together. We understand that we're working towards a better understanding of the world and how to interact with it. I'm also very excited about the potential for, how many users do you have? 8 million? Like, I mean, there's so much potential there for data collection and sharing. I'm really excited about that. I want to try and leverage that to make, you know, to improve things. So the potential is what really gets me, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think what I like most about just OSM is that their willingness, or the willingness to solve issues and solve problems. I think a lot of times, just at my agency, we have certain things that we need to find out quickly, and we need to get in there with the community, understand the community, especially because these disasters impact the community, and OSM has been great with helping us trying to solve those problems. Maggie and I had a conversation yesterday just about some projects that we're working on, and we were just kind of coming out with ideas of how OSM could be impactful in solving those issues. So I think that's one of the things I like. And like she said, you guys, OSM is allowed to make tools and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then okay. If it does, then yes, we can put this out there to everybody. And I think that's something that FEMA enjoys and that we like. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we're partnering.
All right, it's on. There's many things I like a lot about OSM. One of the things that got me pretty excited about OSM, OpenStreetMap, was when Aaron and I met, and he was, giving me a heads up. He's like, "Hey, congratulations, you're a product manager of this application." I'm like, "Sweet, what is it? What does it do?" And he just sat down with me. It was just the simplicity of it, right off the bat. Being able to have like a google.com/maps, but have something you could contribute back to, and have available to us to support our needs. I explained, I was like, "Man, where was this 10 years ago?" As I was an analyst, and I know that there's information over here, but I can't get it over where I need it, to do my job or support the mission or task at hand. So when I saw that we had that available at our fingertips, I was like, this is powerful, it's super incredible. Another thing I think that's really excited is two things before I close out. I said this earlier, but the ability to integrate with other applications. A lot of folks who are like technically savvy and to kind of understand knows what that means. But here in 2022, connecting APIs and having integrations is pretty much almost like a copy paste. It doesn't really take 2 weeks of planning and a week and a half of implementing and another week of testing. You could do things pretty quick, and it makes the application real powerful. And the last thing, we were talking about this in the background. Hopefully there's no lawyers in here, but it's almost like a GIS, like social media platform, right? We were calling, what did we call it earlier? What was it, Geo-Twitter? Where somebody's on their phone, or mobile application or desktop, and you're able to do something. It's like posting like a selfie or a Twitter post or a Facebook post. You're able to like do it live. For me, maybe everybody in the room was like, "Yeah, we've been doing that for 10 years." But for me, seeing that in the federal government side of the house, I'm like, this is pretty powerful.
I just want to get Twitter trending, everybody. So everybody, I know we're supposed to do FedGeoDay, but let's get Twitter trending. I can't say it. Trending today.
I'm going to go to GoDaddy right when I leave. I'm going to buy that domain right now.
Yeah,
nobody else do that in the audience, all right? Nobody do that.
Do you think that'd be a trait? Like we could just create our own new Twitter.
Yeah, there you go.
Twitter. Geo tweeted. I don't know. Use it in the past tense. Anyway, okay. So, what do I like the best about it? Gosh, so many things. I would agree with Derald in the community. I think it's really easy to applaud the data because it's really good data. But without the community, there wouldn't be the data. And yes, we are making advances with AI and ML, and there's some really great data coming out of those processes. USA Structure is just a great example of that. But you still need the human in the loop. You need that human. And I think to that end, I think the community isn't limited in size. So we've been working recently. How many people know all trails? So that data feeds directly from OpenStreetMap. And you think about a problem like that, it's like, well, if it's wrong in OpenStreetMap, somebody might go off trail. How do we fix that? We need to get them in the room, and we need to get mappers in the room. We need to bring National Park Service in the room. And, that could be around any feature within the map. You're creating a new community. So now we have a new trails working group, and there's 60 people in that, and that continues to grow. So there's all these branches. So there's not just one OpenStreetMap community. There's all these different pockets. There's a lot of railroad mappers in the United States that do their own thing. There's a lot of bike mappers. So we geographically convene, but we also convene around the things that we care about and that are important to our lives. So that just, to me, creates this limitless potential of where we could go. So.
No, and I agree with that. And working with Jason, and when people find out about OpenStreetMap and find out the other things could do, the nominate them, the overpass, all those tools, and they're just like, what? And we could do this, and like that's what we've been answering the last 2 weeks. It's just people like, can you find this out? Like, yeah, we can find it out. And there's things that people didn't even know they could use OSM for. So that next question that you have, you can answer that with OpenStreetMap. And we're going to end the panel on this. We're going to end up with some final thoughts. You can talk about whatever you want. Hopefully, it's open mapping and OpenStreetMap, right? But you can do whatever you want. So I'll go around with the final thoughts there.
Final thoughts. Get involved. Join OSM. I have a couple committees that we talk about geospatial data all the time. So there are opportunities and ways to get out there and contribute, especially geospatially. It's a great community. We work together to make things better. It's a great way to spend your time. the people were fun, probably with the exception of me. But I just get out there, get involved, and try and create value for people around you. That's all I have.
Final thoughts. I think that at FEMA, I feel like there's so much open data, OpenStreetMaps, that ways that we can leverage it. So my final thoughts would be, I would love to collaborate more with everybody, people in this room, to figure out ways we can better leverage it and at FEMA to make sure, because we have a life-saving mission, to make sure we meet that mission. And thank you guys for having me.
Give it the delay to make sure this mic is on. So I'll come out a little bit different. So as I mentioned, I'm a product manager. So what does that mean? I'm the broker between the users and the application to make things better. So I would just challenge everybody in the room who are users, whether or not you're a power user or you're just getting into it, provide feedback, right? I'll look over to Maggie. She mentioned Agile earlier and implementing, but provide feedback. See, based on your experience, folks raise their hands that they've been GIS users for the last 10 plus years. If you're new to the application, you have greater, bigger, different perspectives on how you use the application. But challenge us, challenge the team, see what we could do to contribute to make the application better for the world.
Okay, I might use this opportunity to plug some things.
Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
First, I'd say if you haven't ever worked with the data, go over to OpenStreetMap.org. All you need to create an account to edit is an email address. So go in there, maybe try mapping, even if it's just one feature. It'll really start to give you an understanding of the data structures. Second, we're having our virtual conference next weekend, Mapping USA, mappingusa.org to sign up. It's free, and it's Friday. We're going to have 4 hours of people sharing how they're using OpenStreetMap, and it's a partnership also with Wikipedia. So Wiki North America is going to be there. So it's going to be all about data. So if you're into that, I'd say join us. Saturday there's workshops. So if there's something you heard about that you want to learn, it might be taught that Saturday. We're also really excited to announce that we are a membership-based organization. We have individual members. They vote for our board members. Our board members are all volunteers. But we just expanded that to include organizational memberships. So this will be a more formal partnership with federal agencies and nonprofits and companies to start building even more of a foundation in that shared conversation. So if you're into that, come talk to me.
Okay, I want to thank this great panel for doing this, especially last moment. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope you guys learned a lot. Please come talk to them afterwards. Ask them whatever you want. They open the door. And Jason, happy birthday again. So there you go. So thank you very much, everybody. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, guys.